for me, the funny thing that I always go back to is when I was coming up, I used to obsessively read interviews with writers I liked. And they would get asked like a similar question a lot, like what's the difference between writing creator-owned like superhero stuff or a license and your own stuff? And so many writers I like at least would say, you know, it's a totally different skill set. And I always would laugh at that and be like, what a pretentious answer. It's like, it's writing, it's storytelling. Like, don't make it some magical process. And now that I do both, it is remarkably a different skill set. And the way I sort of always look at it, I know, and I feel just like everyone in here being like, what a pompous ass that guy is. But, you know.
One has more politics than the other.
Well, like the way I always think about it is like, doing a creator-owned book is like, and this sounds like reductive of licensed stuff, and I don't mean it to be because I really like writing Marvel books and superhero stuff, but like, one is like a go-kart track, and one is like having a dune buggy in the desert, where it's like, I can't take a creator-owned book and just go anywhere. I have to circle the track and stay in the world, and yeah, superhero book, yeah, that's correct. You're correct. Yeah, you're right. I can do whatever I want in my books. And so it's like, it's the difference between having this wide open space, which like I know sounds in a lot of ways like I'm like, oh, it's so much better, you can do whatever you want. For me, a lot of times, I find that terrifying. It's really scary to just be like, I can go anywhere. Like, what if I just have, you know.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to say, is that like on the creator-owned side of things, like the foundation for me is I spend so much time figuring out like the world,
what the limits are,
the specific rules of the world or the concept that I'm trying to build, so that I get the most kind of story mileage out of it, and I'm able to explore emotionally and thematically the stuff that interests me, you know, specifically. Like, there are so many, especially on a creator-owned, there are so many moving parts, and it's like a combination lock. Like, you're trying to make all of these pieces fit together, and if any one is off, like you can tell a story, but it may not be the most effective version, or you could go off in a dune buggy and you can just kind of go, but there's no coherence to it necessarily, or you're making up on the fly, which can be really fun, but I've backed myself into that corner enough times where you're like, I don't know what issue 7 is, like, why did I do this in issues 1 and 2, you know, and a lot of that comes back to like, foundationally, like, what are you setting the world up to be?
This whole panel is just going to be everyone making analogies. Great. Okay, dune, buggy, painting, campfires. These guys need to get out more. That's what
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Off of that question? I'm curious, for Jeff, like, is there a difference between the stuff you just write for yourself and the stuff you write and draw? Is your process different?
Yeah, it's way different. I mean, because when you're just writing for an artist, the process stops when you hand it over to a script over to them.
you laugh and you go crowd scene.
But when you start, I mean, comics is a visual medium, so when you start laying out a page and thumbnailing and then drawing, like that's all part of the writing too, you know?
So you write less when you know you're going to draw?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to describe things to myself. So.
It's a lot of fun. Does artist Jeff ever get mad at writer Jeff?
No, they get along really well.
Oh,
they help each other cheat.
It's a desert with open sky.
Snow.
Is that why there's so much snow in
That's
Landscapes and snow.
That's right.
Well, can we go back to your point about politics? Can any of you recall any moments where you had to be extremely political in some characters?
Are you trying to get us fired?
No. It's really interesting.
Are you extremely political about characters or with characters? What do you mean, like?
I think what you mean is respectful.
Yeah,
I
like
think
how do you manage
That's
that?
the political
So-
response.
Yeah, that's a beautiful response.
But you do. I mean, look, I've written Wonder Woman and Xena, and those are hugely iconic female characters. And I don't worry about the politics of those characters. I worry about being respectful to the lore and all the fans who are passionate about those characters. And every fan has a different take on what that character should be. And I think that it's very easy to sit back sometimes as a writer and forget that you are one person's take on a character. And especially when you're writing licensed characters, these are characters that people are incredibly passionate about. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many cosplayers out there. So you always want to be, I think, respectful. I don't think it's a political answer, but I think we generally always want to be respectful of the characters. And that's part of, the political part comes more with dealing with, editorial and making sure that what you're doing as a writer doesn't step on the toes of another writer, or, I think that's where the politics come in more.
But I think one of the things that's really fascinating for me is when I look back at the stories that really shook me as a reader growing up, they were always stories that seemed to throw crazy curveballs into the characters, really shake up their lives. They were seminal masks, like everything was nuts, so a character gives up their identity, or ridiculous things happen, or they look like they're going to die. Those are the storylines that really stick with you. There's a reason, those stories that not just make fans mad, but they're memorable because they're so dramatic, because they seem so intensive.
Right, but they're also still respectful of the
They are,
character.
but it's like, we also have the benefit of looking decades later, but at the time, the fans lost their minds. When Gwen Stacy died, fans lost their minds, you know what I mean? And when Jean Grey died, when all these things happened, there were huge contentious fan, yeah, right, she's dead, I forgot to tell you. So now, one of the things is trying to come up with storylines that are dramatic and poignant and exciting, and not that you ignore the fan base, but that you also need to be able to carve ahead and kind of go, there's a good story to be told here, and there's something dramatic we can mine here, and it's going to be powerful, even if it's going to rock the boat, because hopefully years from now, you will appreciate it that much more.
So you guys took that in a way better direction. I thought you were asking about company politics.
Oh.